We know it as the Vikings war chant, the rally cry, the word that brings the fans together.
Skol! We hear it and say it all the time, but what does Skol actually mean? Good question. As Heather Brown found, it might not be what you've always thought.
Skol has been in our lexicon since the very beginning of the franchise back in 1961.
Skol Vikings, let's win this game!
It was really like, cheers, Vikings. We've scored, we're celebrating, we're winning.
The word itself dates back more than 1,000 years.
Oh, I know the meaning of skål.
Greg White teaches Swedish at the American Swedish Institute.
Skol?
Skål.
Skol.
That's how it's pronounced.
How do you spell that?
S-K-A with a circle over it, L. And it means bowl. You pick it up, the first person to take a sip, say skål, and pass it on to the next person who would
Take a sip, and then
Skol.
Skol.
pass it to the next person.
Skol!
And it was a greeting of warmth and of camaraderie between the drinkers.
Kind of like a cheers?
Exactly like cheers in British English.
It was never an ancient Viking war cry.
There's no evidence the Vikings ever used it as a chant.
In fact, the Vikings used a different word as a toast.
They did have a word in those days they used called minnes, and it means to your memory.
Minne. Skol sounds more
Oh, of course it does.
Skol!
And that story that Skol came from Vikings drinking beer from the skulls of their enemies,
That's a really wonderful myth, but it's not fact.
in 2016, the Minnesota Vikings introduced the Skol chant after seeing it used by the Icelandic soccer team and its fans.
We reached out to them directly and said, would you be willing to lend us this idea from one Viking fan to another?
And they did, ensuring Skol will be used to intimidate opponents for seasons to come. Heather Brown, WCCO 4 News.
If you have a good question for Heather, please email it by going to wcco.com/links.
It's a great chant.
It is. It's a great. Cheers.
I'm glad we're not chanting bowl. That'd be kind of weird.